This is a camshaft for a Cummins 12 valve. On the back of the timing gear, right here, is where the top dead center timing pin locator enters the back of the cam gear. And this is the pin. So normally it would be in a housing here in this area here. I had unbolted the housing and I would like to bolt the housing back into place. However, if I just bolt the housing in as is, it likely will not be very accurate. So what I'm working on now is putting the engine at top dead center, and then once that has been accomplished, then I want to bolt this back into place with the pin inserted into the cam gear so that it's referenced correctly. So far I only have one piston installed into the block, and that actually makes it easy for turning the engine over by hand. Also, I don't have the harmonic balancer installed, so I'd like to bolt that on temporarily because it actually will come in handy for this procedure. I have a piece of wire bolted to the front of the engine to use as a pointer, and with only one piston installed, it's not very difficult to turn it over by hand. So what I want to do is bring it up to the stop, and then make a mark on the paper. It turns out that this piston stop had just a little bit of flex to it, so I decided not to use that for this procedure. I'm going to use this instead. So this one gets bolted 2 bolts across the bore, and also I replaced this paper as well. I had it positioned incorrectly, so it does seem more rigid now. So turning that piston to the top here again, I've got a little mark on the paper now where the wire pointer is. So up next, I want to turn the engine the other way so that the piston comes up and hits the stop again from the other side. Oh, there was the piston hitting the stop. Here's the second mark on the paper, lining up with the wire there. So what I'd like to do now is cut this paper off on this side, just beside that mark, and then I want to fold the paper over. This is the second line. I already cut that paper off, and I may have cut that paper just a little bit too far. I may have cut just a little bit into that black line. So I folded it over and lined it up to where I thought it was a nice match for this mark, folded it, and then while it was folded I stuck my pen into the fold, and then it sort of made that double line there with the pen. And so now I've got the have the piston stop off and the engine rotated to what looks like the center right there. I think I'm going to use a different plan here to reference where the engine should be turned so that it lines up with that pointer. What I've done now is I've just left I've got the paper folded, and so I'm using the folded end now as a reference. So I've got that wire is approximately halfway overlapping that folded end. So I think that's probably going to be more accurate than what I was going to do before. I'm using some blue Loctite on the fasteners so the housing can go back on now with a new O-ring, and this O-ring I'm leaving off just so that it slides easier. This is the outside end of that timing pin, and the other end is actually visible as well, as it's entering into the timing gear. See it there? So I had this engaged into the timing gear while the two bolts for the housing were torqued in place. These timing pins, it's some sort of a composite or a plastic or something like that. It's not very heavy duty, and that little tip on there can break off easily if a guy is not careful. So anyways guys, another video.